What is a cutie mark? Ever since Magical Mystery Cure aired, this has been a rather hot topic question. Granted, being as it's been a few months since that episode aired, the talk has died down a bit, but nevertheless, the premise of Magical Mystery Cure seems to have divided the fandom as to what a cutie mark is and how it works. Of course, I have my own interpretation of cutie marks, but before I delve into how I've been able to rationalize them, it's important to understand where this confusion stemmed from in the first place. Cutie marks have been part of the show since the beginning of Friendship is Magic, and, of course, in all incarnations of the show prior, but in Friendship is Magic, they aren't directly addressed in the context of the lore until the episode called The Cutie, where Cheerilee exposits to her class about what a cutie mark is. Here, we find that, in the world of MLP, a cutie mark is kind of like a coming of age for a young pony. It's a representation of what a pony's talent is and what makes them unique. These marks can be literal, like in the case of Applejack, where her cutie mark is apples, representing her talent for apple farming, or it can be more abstract, like Cheerilee's own example, as her cutie mark is 3 smiling flowers, but they're an abstraction of the joy she brings to her students as they blossom. Cutie marks went relatively unexplored after this brief bit in the show until the episode Cutie Mark Chronicles, where we learn how each of the main 6 got their cutie marks, and the concept of them being a physical representation of realizing your special talent was reinforced, as each of the main 6 realized their gift and subsequently got their mark. The point is, in Season 1, cutie marks were equated with self-discovery and the realization of a pony's unique skill sets. This concept was introduced and then solidified. It was not brought up again for the next 2 seasons. Some may cite the episode The Cutie Pox as a further explanation of cutie marks, but I dismiss anything that seems to have been implied about cutie marks in this episode, because Apple Bloom didn't have real cutie marks. Rather, it was just a weird disease. There's no way to know if actual cutie marks work the same way, or rather, all evidence presented in the show seems to suggest that they do not. Regardless, cutie marks took a sideline to other, arguably more important plot elements for the bulk of the series. Until Magical Mystery Cure. Star Swirl's incomplete spell, when performed by Twilight, switches all of her friends' cutie marks around with one another's. Based on what we know about cutie marks, this really shouldn't have been that big of a problem. However, all the main 6 personalities completely shift as a result of this change, each assuming what essentially amounts to a new persona, believing each other's talents to be their own. Subsequently, Twilight laments that she has inadvertently changed all of her friends' destinies. Whoa. What? Since when did a cutie mark dictate a pony's entire persona? When was it so strongly tied to their entire perception of themselves? Magical Mystery Cure seems to take a simple mark of maturity and elevate it to a declaration of unyielding fate. What made things even more interesting was, even though all the characters had no ideas about what their destiny was, based on their swapped cutie marks, none of them actually excelled at their borrowed talents. Instead, they struggled trying to do what their friends did. This is a very important point, and is actually the cornerstone to how I interpreted the events of Magical Mystery Cure and how they tie in with Call of the Cutie. Before I go into that though, I wanted to address a critique that a lot of people had with Magical Mystery Cure and the talents portrayed by the swapped cutie marks. Many lament the fact that the talents that the main 6 were attempting weren't actually the true talents that the proper main 6 usually perform. This is true, but I actually interpreted this as an interesting look at how each of the main 6 perceive each other. Maybe I'm just looking too deeply into this and this wasn't intentional, but hear me out for a second. Rarity adopted Rainbow Dash's cutie mark. However, instead of becoming obsessed with racing, Rarity instead took on Dashy's weather duties. This seems odd, but then again, think about who Rarity is as a character. She is a very proper pony, and places a lot of weight on her work ethic and business. As a result, Rarity might internally identify Rainbow not by her obsession with racing, but by her occupation, her job as a weather pony. Rainbow Dash inherited Fluttershy's cutie mark. However, instead of caring for all the animals and being able to communicate with them, she instead had all of them living with her in Fluttershy's cottage. This could be a look into Rainbow Dash's more blunt psyche, as maybe she perceives Fluttershy as literally living with animals, not really taking the time, or even caring, about the more subtle details of what Fluttershy actually does. Fluttershy acquires Pinkie Pie's cutie mark, but instead of trying to be friendly towards every pony and make them smile, she instead becomes a clown and relies on poor attempts at slapstick comedy. This is interesting because it shows how an introvert like Fluttershy would have difficulty understanding the subtle differences between being a clown and being an extrovert, something Pinkie Pie naturally grasps. Pinkie Pie adopts Applejack's cutie mark, and as a result, does nothing but constantly work on the farm, complaining all the while that such activities are no fun. It makes sense though that a free-spirited party animal like Pinkie wouldn't be able to really understand the subtle sense of satisfaction that comes from a hard day's work that stems from one's passion, and not being able to truly recognize that underlying motivation in Applejack doing what she does. And finally, Applejack received Rarity's Cutie mark, and subsequently started making dresses in Rarity's boutique. However, as Applejack has been established to be very utilitarian, even when it comes to clothing, as shown in Suited for Success, it makes sense then that she totally missed the point that for Rarity, the art of the dress is just as much about the art as it is the dress. Applejack makes garments, yes, but none of them have any sense of aesthetic direction, something that is arguably more important to Rarity's work than the functionality of the garment itself. So, in other words, while a lot of people complain that the Cutie mark swaps were inaccurate and showed that the writers didn't understand their own characters, to me, it showed instead a reinforcement that the main six were completely out of their element, while also giving us a look at how they all perceive each other. I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyways, getting back on track, Cutie marks and magical mystery cure. Destiny was thrown around a lot in this episode, and it's that word that I feel is the crux of the issues that this episode brought up to people like myself who think way too deeply about candy-colored horses. Cutie marks prior had nothing to do with binding you to a single destiny, nor did they ever appear to have the kind of power to completely change your skill set if they were swapped. After all, a cutie mark appears after a young pony learns of their talent that they have cultivated through their own effort and self-introspection. It isn't handed down to them from on high, so how could a cutie mark swap do that in Magical Mystery Cure? The answer is pretty simple if you ask me. They can't, and in Magical Mystery Cure, they didn't. Think about it. No one's destinies in Magical Mystery Cure were changed because Star Swirl's spell didn't change their talent. Sure, they may have thought that they had different destinies, but guess what? They all sucked at it. So, obviously, a cutie mark doesn't alter your natural or cultivated abilities. Rather, Star Swirl's spell instead altered their memories as to what they thought their talents were. So, even though the script throws around the word destiny left and right, Twy and company apparently aren't using the term in a literal sense. More like a slang term to represent your calling or natural progression. A cutie mark is not synonymous with destiny, as their destiny did not change with their mark. In fact, a cutie mark apparently in and of itself does nothing, as a swap didn't even adjust their natural talents either. All it did was alter their memories to make them think that they had different talents. So it naturally follows then that a cutie mark has no inherent power. It is merely an image that represents the maturity of the individual it appears on, just like Cheerily describes and called the cutie. It doesn't limit a pony to a singular path it prescribes because the main six sucked at their new destinies. And it doesn't dictate a pony's special talents either, as the ponies were still good at what they've worked on their whole lives, as shown by them easily taking up their true talents during the True True Friends song, not whatever it was that ended up emblazed on their butt. So, if a cutie mark has no inherent power, then guess what? The whole concept of destiny being at work in the events of Magical Mystery Cure, or in MLP at all in relationship to cutie marks, begins to fall apart too, because the mark has no inherent power. It's all the discretion of the individual and what they want to do. They have to take time in their youth to explore who they really are, try different things, invest in themselves and really dig deep and discover what things truly drive them and invigorate their lives. And as soon as they realize what their talent is and what they want to do with their time, then a mark, a powerless symbol, appears that showcases their mental maturity. Sure, this may downplay the magic in Magical Mystery Cure, but if you ask me, this actually makes the struggle in Magical Mystery Cure even more potent. Because it means what my cutie mark is telling me doesn't refer to the call of an unyielding destiny, but instead represents the altered memories of these characters. They falsely remember having passion, drive, and success at these talents newly emblazoned on their flanks, but now, all of a sudden, their singular passion in life is something completely out of their reach. Of course, we as an audience know that this skill was never theirs in the first place, but the characters don't. All they know is that this was their calling in life, and now, for some reason, they're failing at their purpose for existing. This must be a truly crushing sensation, because it's made pretty clear that equestrian society revolves heavily around self-identity. To think that you have invested nearly all of your life into a skill, built up all this passion, and have focused your entire self-identity around this singular concept, only to have it all of a sudden inexplicably slip away from you, leaving you naked and hollow and suddenly without purpose? I can't think of a more terrifying concept, not just for a resident of Equestria, but for anyone in general. This interpretation to me really makes Magical Mystery Cure deliver a powerful emotional conflict. Twilight is so upset, so crushed at her mistake, because she knows this. She lives in a world that puts self-identity on such a pedestal, and has gone through this process herself. And now, she has inadvertently taken away that foundation of the self from the 5 ponies she cares about more than anyone else. That's drama worthy of a season finale.